Today we're talking about 5 knockoff tools that I feel like are just as good as the more expensive brands. And on this channel, we don't borrow money for projects or for tools. And so anytime that I can share something that I feel like will save you a little bit of money, I want to be sure and help you do that. Also, links will be in the description down below for any of these tools that I talk about. Let's get started. First up, we're going to start with clamps. Now, these are what I'm going to be talking about are going to be the bigger clamps. Now, this is a 50-inch K-body clamp from Bessie. This is a 48-inch clamp from Harbor Freight. These two clamps kind of do the same type of thing, just for a lot different price. The Bessie clamp is very heavy duty, very strong. It's a great clamp, it really is. It's also $65 currently. This is a aluminum bar clamp from Harbor Freight, and it will do pretty much the same job for about 15 bucks. Now, is it exactly the same? No. Are there some differences? Are there some benefits to this? Yes, absolutely there are. But for most people, this clamp is going to do 90% of what you need to do. And for those of you out there, the first thing you're going to say is you're going to say, yeah, but they may flex or this or the other because they're made out of aluminum. And they do. They can kind of flex or twist a little bit if you kind of crank down on them too tight. But there's also a pretty simple solution. You can actually take and just cut a piece of wood. A lot of times I've seen people and they will just slide a piece in here all the way down through here, and it helps to stiffen this up and make it a lot more rigid. The thing is, what you got to remember is for 15 bucks versus $65, we can buy a lot of clamps for the price of just one. And that's the kicker when it comes to this, because most of the time, okay, I own both of these style clamps, and honestly, 5 to 1, I will grab one of these over this one just because it's so dadgum heavy and big and bulky. Now, there are times when I want this and I need it, and when I do, it comes in very, very handy and it works really, really well. The biggest thing to remember too between the two of these is that even though this is marketed as a 48-inch clamp, it does not actually have a 48-inch capacity. My assumption is that the entire thing is 48 inches long, but the capacity is more like 43 or 44. So that's something to remember. So anytime I'm doing something and I need a true 48, I'm gonna go with this 50-inch Bessie. But in my opinion, in a lot of cases, most cases, this honestly is just what I grab. There are several different options of these. You can get these in 36, 24-inch lengths. They even make a 60. I don't have the 60. I do think there is probably a point, and that 60 may be it. I don't know. There is probably a point where maybe it is a little bit too flexible. But I've had these for like 10 years, and I just keep using them. The most annoying part about it is this little handle right here. It's got this acorn nut thing that comes on here, and about, I don't know, 30% of these, the acorn nut falls off, and then this piece falls off, and then I lose it, and then I have to tighten it up with a screwdriver. That's about the worst part of it. Again, $15, 65 bucks. I use this way more than I do this, and I have them both. Next up, we're going to tape measures. Now, this is the Stanley PowerLock 12-foot tape measure. It's one of my favorite tape measures because it's kind of the perfect size in my opinion. It's also very classic. It's very simple. I love that about it. Now, if you've been on YouTube very long, you've probably seen the fast cap righty-lefty tape measure that a lot of YouTubers love and use. Here's the deal. I had one of those in the past, and I say that in the past because I threw it in the trash. I know that's controversial. Hang with me, I've got a story. Now, if you're not familiar with a righty-lefty tape measure, the way that it works is it's designed so that no matter which direction you pull from, you've got numbers facing you, and if I spin it and I turn it this way, I also have numbers facing me. And the way they do it is it's split right down the middle, and then there's numbers both directions. The thought behind it is good. For me, it didn't work very well, and here's why I think. I grew up using a tape measure my whole life. My parents have had a sawmill my whole life, and so just using a tape measure has always been a part of our life, and we didn't have anything that had that righty-lefty thing. It was always just, you just knew how to make a mark. It didn't matter if it was upside down, you just made the mark and you went on. But I had one given to me, and so I decided, okay, I'm gonna use this. All the cool kids are using it. I wanna be a cool kid. So I decided to start using it. Problem that I ran into is that when I would see things, certain numbers were kind of mirror images of the other. So a 6 here would look like a 9 on the other side of it, and a 9 and a 6, and vice versa. There were certain numbers that looked like mirror images that started causing me some real problems. And the problem was is that sometimes I would pull a mark and I would say, okay, I need to mark this at 9, and I would mark it at 9, but I actually marked it at 6, or vice versa. In the shop, that's not too big of a deal. I could kind of deal with it. The real problem happened whenever I was doing an install for a customer, and they had a backsplash that was made of subway tile all the way up the wall, and they wanted me to put some floating shelves in. So I went in to install those, and when you do that, and when you're going into tile like that, everything's got to be perfect. The problem was is that I decided to use my righty-lefty tape measure, and that 6'9" thing got me. And thankfully, I was able to salvage it because I only made one hole in the wrong spot, and I caught it at first, and then I was able to readjust, and then I had to kind of change my spacing on my shelves, but I was able to still make it work. Now, at that point, I should have just thrown it in the trash, but I didn't because I really wanted to like this tape measure, so I took a Sharpie and I wrote on there, and I was like, made little marks at 6 and at 9 and anything that tripped me up because I was like, I got to get this figured out. And in the shop, it would still periodically happen. And just one day, I just said, using a tape measure should not be this hard. For some reason, something in my brain did not like the righty-lefty tape measure. And because of that, I just continued to use this because it's very simple. And I know that that Fast Cap one has a pencil sharpener on it, but I never use that anyway. Next up, we are going to probably my favorite two tools to kind of talk about, my favorite knockoff tool anyway. So this is the Micro Jig Gripper, and this is the Miles Craft Grabber, okay? Very, very similar. They basically do the same thing. And I've done a video kind of going into a lot more detail on these, so if you want to check that out, if you've got a lot more questions about this. But essentially, these are push blocks for your table saw. Like I said, they both do the same thing, but it allows you to be able to adjust and safely make cuts that maybe sometimes would not be so safe. And so you can slide this center piece around, and when you do this, it's got a little bit of a bind. There we go. When you do this, we can slide this around, and then we can tighten this up, and then we can run against our fence and make a cut. We can also, if we're bringing a piece in, and a lot of times this works good for more narrower type pieces, but we have this little foot here that we can adjust down and drop down like this, and then we can push this piece through. It just helps, just a lot safer way to make cuts. This is a very, very good tool. Honestly, they're both very good tools. The thing is that this one is almost twice as expensive as this one. And in all honesty, not only are they basically about the same, in my opinion, this cheaper one from Miles Craft is just simply better. A couple of different reasons for that. One is you see here, this one has a handle that is slanted. So when I grab this handle and I push down, my natural reaction is to push toward the fence. That's a good thing. Okay. The other thing that I like about this is that this one has a sacrificial heel here on the back that we can let down. And then when we make a cut on something, it will help to hook and then push the workpiece through. It's a big deal because a lot of times you get a little bit of sawdust on something, maybe you're using some kind of laminated plywood or something like that. This rubber piece on the bottom can get a little slippery, and this heel just helps you to be able to use that. So that's all a part of this. Now, I have been told that you can get a heel for these. They just don't come with them. This also comes with even a smaller piece that goes here as well. So you've got a 1/4 inch and an 1/8 inch piece that will basically just unscrew right there, pull it off, put another one on if you need to get super thin over tight against your fence. So these two tools, great tools, but when it comes right down to it, man, this is probably my favorite knockoff of 2024 that I've discovered, just because, again, nothing against the gripper, but I just like this one better. Next up, we're going to precision squares. Now, these little squares like this one is from Woodpeckers. This is the Woodpeckers DelVe square. It's a 3.5 inch square. This is a great square. I've had this for a long time. I really like this. I don't have anything against Woodpeckers. I actually have several of their tools behind me. Not a ton, but I do have some. But the thing is that even though that this is an extremely accurate tool, it's very, very well made. It's also very expensive. This thing runs about 70 or 80 bucks typically, and so they're pretty proud of these. there is a couple of different options here that we can consider. One of these is the DFM square here. It's almost a dead ringer for this DelVe square. They're very, very close. There are a few subtle differences. This is a very good square as well. And then also it's got a few, so these squares are made so that you can drop a pencil through and you can make marks. You've probably seen these online, but that's kind of the idea. And this one has the marks through here are all on 1/16 of an inches, whereas the DelVe square are on 1/8 of an inches for you to drop your pencil through. So I like the flexibility of having the 1/16 a little bit better. This though is the eye gauging bench square. Now, this square we said 70, 80 bucks. This square right here is about $47 or $48. This is still a very, very good square, much cheaper. This square is the eye gauging bench square, and it is about $27. In my opinion, this is the best value you can find. This one was perfectly square out of the box. I've had no issues with it from that perspective. And honestly, because of the color of it, and they did such a good job on the lettering and the numbers and everything, it's very, very easy to read. It is easier to read than this DFM square, and that's what I really like about it. I also like the fact that the blade is very, very thin, and so because of that, there's a less likely that you're going to run any parallax error when you're making marks or things like that. If I had to knock it, one little thing I would say is that the holes that are in this for your pencil, they're actually kind of designed a little bit more for like a regular old school pencil rather than like a mechanical pencil. So they're slightly bigger holes. So that's the only thing I don't like about it. But other than that, it's very square, very accurate, very good. You've also got measurements here on this side as well, something the others don't. But you can set this up if you needed to set up any kind of table saw, drill press, things like that. It's a very, very versatile square for 27 or 28 bucks. I'm telling you, you can't beat this thing. Next up, we're moving to bench cookies. Now, you've probably seen bench cookies all over YouTube over the years, and these are great. They're very, very handy. They're not supposed to be the screen color. These have been painted over 1,000 times, but these are very, very good. However, a couple years ago, Craig came out with what they call these project blocks. And they're essentially their answer to a bench cookie. There are a few subtle differences, and I feel like make them a little bit better. One of which is the height of this, when it is like this, is the same height as a 2x4. So if you didn't have enough of these, maybe you need to lay out a few, but you also need to do something on the other side, you could throw a 2x4 down. It's all going to be the same height. It's a very, very good thought when it came to this. The other thing is that you've probably seen these little adapters that go on your bench cookies, and you can put them on here like that. And now they kind of turn your bench cookie into a painter's pyramid. The cool thing about the Craig project blocks is you've got a button here you push in and then you twist it, and they have this little point that bumps up out of the center and it comes up, and that becomes a painter's pyramid in the same way. And it is built in, and you don't actually have to buy that separately. So a lot of times you buy bench cookies, they're just going to come with these. You have to buy these other pieces that come with them. But with these, it's built right into it. And I love the flexibility that you have with that and the ability to do that. Now, I will say that even though this is kind of a little bit of a rubber piece that they've got on these on the top and bottom of the Craig, I kind of prefer, this is a little bit thicker on this, a little more thicker, kind of foamy kind of stuff. I kind of probably prefer that a little bit, but overall, I kind of prefer the Craig just for this flexibility all in one. Price-wise, they're pretty close to the same. These are about 16 or 17 bucks for 4 of them. These are about 19 or 20 bucks for 4 of them. Again, I've just kind of over the years, I've asked for these for Christmas gifts and things like that because they're very, very handy items to have. And in my opinion, even though the bench cookies are kind of tried and true and tested and have been around for years, I've just found that over the years, I've started liking these a lot more. So as you can see, there are lots of alternatives when it comes to tools, and these are just 5 simple examples. I would love to know some of your favorite knockoff tools that you use. I'm always all ears whenever it comes to finding ways to do the same job for a lot less money. Let me know down in the comments below.